Today, I want to talk about something that often leads to confusion, misunderstandings, and sometimes even heartbreak: how we interpret the actions of others, particularly married women, in social and personal interactions. In a world where we are constantly reading between the lines, it's easy to assume that certain behaviors mean more than they actually do. A smile, a kind gesture, a friendly conversation, these are all part of human interaction, yet they are sometimes misinterpreted as signals of deeper intentions. But let's be clear, a married woman, like any other person, has the right to express kindness, warmth, or friendship without it being seen as an invitation. Respecting personal boundaries is not just about avoiding trouble, it's about understanding that human connections exist beyond romantic or physical attraction. A woman may laugh at your jokes, engage in meaningful conversations, or even offer emotional support, but that does not necessarily mean she is interested in anything beyond friendship. People, especially women, are often judged unfairly for the way they interact, while their true intentions are ignored. The real question is, why do we assume that every action has a hidden message? Why do we reduce relationships to assumptions rather than communication? Instead of making conclusions based on what we think, let's respect the commitments and choices people have made. If a married woman truly wants something beyond her commitment, she will express it clearly. But until then, it's our responsibility to act with integrity, respect boundaries, and avoid making assumptions that can lead to misunderstandings and complications. Let's promote a culture of respect, where kindness is not mistaken for desire, and where personal choices are honored rather than misinterpreted. Respecting boundaries is one of the most fundamental aspects of human interaction, yet it is often overlooked or misunderstood. Boundaries define the space between individuals, both physically and emotionally, ensuring that relationships, whether personal, professional, or social, remain healthy and respectful. When it comes to interactions with married women, understanding and respecting these boundaries is even more crucial. Boundaries exist for a reason: to protect the integrity of relationships, to maintain trust, and to foster a sense of safety and mutual respect. Without boundaries, misunderstandings arise, and what may have been intended as a harmless interaction can turn into an uncomfortable or even damaging situation. Every person has the right to set boundaries that align with their values, commitments, and emotional well-being. A married woman, like any other individual, has personal limits that should be recognized and honored. Just because she engages in conversation, shares a laugh, or offers kindness, does not mean she is inviting anything beyond that interaction. It is a mistake to assume that every action has an underlying message or hidden intention. Assumptions lead to false expectations, and false expectations lead to unnecessary complications. Respecting a married woman's boundaries means acknowledging that she has chosen a committed relationship and that her actions should not be misinterpreted based on personal desires or societal biases. Many times, people misread social cues and project their own feelings onto others. This is particularly common when a person is hoping for a deeper connection or when they are not fully aware of the importance of boundaries. A simple act of kindness, a warm smile, or a friendly conversation can easily be mistaken for flirtation, when, in reality, it is nothing more than common courtesy. Women, especially married women, often navigate a world where their actions are scrutinized and misinterpreted. What should be normal human interaction is sometimes viewed through a distorted lens, leading to confusion and sometimes even unwanted advances. Respecting boundaries requires a level of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. It demands that individuals take a step back and assess situations objectively, rather than through the lens of personal desires or assumptions. It is important to recognize that different cultures, backgrounds, and personal experiences influence how people express themselves. Some individuals are naturally more expressive or open, while others may be reserved. A married woman who engages in friendly conversations or offers support is not necessarily expressing romantic interest. She may simply be showing kindness, being polite, or engaging in a natural exchange of thoughts and ideas. Misinterpreting such actions can not only damage personal relationships, but can also put her in a position where she feels uncomfortable or disrespected. It is unfair to impose one's own expectations on someone else without clear communication and understanding. Respecting boundaries also means recognizing the importance of commitment. Marriage is a partnership built on trust, loyalty, and mutual understanding. When a married woman interacts with others, she does so within the context of her commitment. Assuming that she is looking for something outside of her marriage disregards the trust she has built with her partner. It also disregards her personal agency, the ability to make choices without being subjected to external interpretations that may not reflect reality. Just as one would expect their own relationship to be respected, it is essential to extend that same courtesy to others. One of the biggest challenges in respecting boundaries is overcoming personal biases and societal conditioning. In many cultures, there is an underlying belief that if a woman is friendly or approachable, she must have an ulterior motive. This perspective is not only flawed but also harmful. It places unnecessary pressure on women to constantly monitor their behavior, fearing that any act of kindness may be misinterpreted. It also creates an environment where genuine human interactions become difficult because of the fear of assumptions and misjudgments. Instead of approaching situations with preconceived notions, it is essential to engage in open and honest communication. If there is ever uncertainty about someone's intentions, the best course of action is to seek clarity rather than making assumptions. Respecting boundaries is also about self-discipline and understanding one's own limitations. It is natural for people to feel attracted to others, but acting on those feelings without considering the consequences is where the problem arises. A married woman may be an interesting, kind, or even deeply understanding person, but that does not mean she is available or interested. Recognizing the difference between admiration and entitlement is key. Just because someone is drawn to a person does not mean they have the right to impose their feelings on them. Self-control is an essential part of maintaining respect in any relationship. It allows individuals to appreciate others without crossing lines that should not be crossed. Trust is another crucial element when discussing boundaries. When a married woman engages in professional or social interactions, she does so with the expectation that her words and actions will be taken at face value. If every friendly exchange is met with suspicion or is turned into something it is not, it creates an atmosphere of distrust and discomfort. Women should not have to second-guess their behavior out of fear that someone will misinterpret their intentions. By respecting boundaries, individuals help create an environment where trust can flourish, where people can interact freely without worrying about hidden agendas or ulterior motives. One of the most respectful things a person can do is acknowledge when a boundary has been set and honor it without resistance. If a married woman expresses that she is uncomfortable with a certain interaction, or if she sets clear limits in her conversations, it is essential to listen and adjust accordingly. Ignoring boundaries is a sign of disrespect, and it can cause emotional distress for the person whose limits are not being acknowledged. It is not about personal rejection. It is about understanding that every person has their own comfort levels and respecting them without question. Respecting boundaries is also about maturity and emotional intelligence. It requires the ability to manage emotions, understand social cues, and recognize that not every interaction needs to be analyzed for hidden meanings. When people learn to respect boundaries, Relationships, whether they are friendships, professional partnerships, or casual acquaintances, become healthier and more fulfilling. There is a sense of ease and trust when individuals know that their intentions will not be constantly questioned or misinterpreted. Another important aspect of respecting boundaries is recognizing that they are not static. Boundaries can change over time depending on circumstances, experiences, and personal growth. What is comfortable for someone today may not be the same tomorrow. Being adaptable and willing to respect shifting boundaries is crucial in maintaining positive interactions. If a married woman once engaged in open discussions but later chooses to be more reserved, that change should be accepted without pressure or resentment. Understanding and respecting these changes is part of building strong, respectful relationships. In some cases, people cross boundaries without realizing it. This is why self-awareness and reflection are so important. Taking the time to evaluate one's behavior and interactions can help prevent misunderstandings. Asking questions like, "Am I respecting her personal space?" or "Am I making assumptions based on my own feelings rather than her actions?" can provide valuable insight into one's approach. Being mindful of body language, tone, and verbal communication can also help in understanding whether or not an interaction is welcome or appropriate. Respecting boundaries ultimately leads to stronger, more genuine connections. When people know they can interact without fear of their actions being misinterpreted, they feel more comfortable being themselves. Healthy boundaries create a sense of security and trust, allowing relationships to thrive without unnecessary tension. It is through respect and understanding that meaningful and lasting relationships are built, whether in friendships, workplaces, or social circles. By choosing to respect boundaries, individuals contribute to a culture of integrity and mutual respect. Instead of making assumptions or imposing expectations, they allow relationships to develop naturally and authentically. This approach not only strengthens personal connections, but also helps in creating a more respectful and understanding society. Avoiding assumptions is one of the most important aspects of maintaining healthy relationships and interactions. Assumptions often lead to misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and unnecessary complications. When people assume things without verifying facts or understanding the full context, they create a distorted version of reality that can damage relationships, create tension, and lead to actions that are not based on truth. In social interactions, particularly when engaging with married women, assumptions can be dangerous because they often stem from personal biases, desires, or misread social cues. Instead of assuming, it is always better to seek clarity, communicate openly, and observe situations with a neutral perspective. One of the primary reasons people make assumptions is because they rely on their own perspectives rather than considering the other person's intentions. It is easy to interpret friendliness as interest, kindness as attraction, or politeness as an invitation, but these are not necessarily true. A married woman may be warm and engaging in a conversation simply because she values good communication and enjoys social interaction. It does not mean she has ulterior motives or is seeking anything beyond a respectful exchange. When people assume too quickly, they impose their own emotions and thoughts onto another person without considering what that person truly feels or intends. This can lead to disappointment, confusion, and even awkward situations where boundaries are unintentionally crossed. In many cases, assumptions are influenced by cultural or societal norms that suggest certain behaviors have a hidden meaning. Some believe that if a woman laughs at a joke, makes prolonged eye contact, or engages in meaningful conversations, she must have deeper intentions. However, human interaction is complex, and assuming that every action has an underlying motive is both unfair and inaccurate. People have different personalities, different ways of expressing themselves, and different levels of comfort in social settings. What one person considers normal friendliness may be perceived differently by someone else, but that does not mean the perception is correct. Making assumptions without clear confirmation can create unnecessary complications and even ruin potential friendships or professional relationships. Another issue with assumptions is that they often reflect personal desires more than reality. When someone hopes for a certain outcome, they may interpret any sign in their favor, even when there is no real indication of such an outcome. This is particularly common when people develop feelings for someone who is unavailable or committed to someone else. In such cases, they may look for small gestures, words, or actions to justify their hopes, even when there is no genuine reason to do so. This creates a cycle of false expectations that can lead to frustration or disappointment. Instead of assuming, the best approach is always to communicate directly or recognize that personal desires should not override objective reality. Assumptions can also damage reputations and trust. When someone assumes that a married woman is interested in them without confirmation, they might share this belief with others, leading to unnecessary gossip or speculation. This can create uncomfortable situations for the woman involved, who may not even be aware that her actions are being misinterpreted. Respecting someone's reputation means avoiding making statements or conclusions without concrete proof. Spreading false narratives based on assumptions can lead to strained relationships, personal embarrassment, and in some cases even harm the person's social or professional standing. It is always better to rely on facts rather than speculation. One of the most effective ways to avoid assumptions is to practice self-awareness. It is important to question why certain thoughts or beliefs arise. Are they based on clear evidence, or are they shaped by personal emotions and desires? Self-reflection allows people to differentiate between reality and personal interpretation. When engaging with a married woman or anyone else, taking a moment to analyze whether thoughts are based on facts or assumptions can prevent unnecessary misunderstandings. Developing the habit of seeking confirmation rather than jumping to conclusions helps create a more respectful and understanding approach to interactions. Communication is another key element in avoiding assumptions. Instead of guessing what someone means or wants, asking for clarity is always the better approach. If a situation seems ambiguous, there is no harm in politely seeking clarification. This does not mean asking direct or intrusive questions, but rather ensuring that interactions are understood correctly. A communication practice that has been unsuccessful, and a communication practice that is not unsuccessful. Clear communication eliminates the risk of misinterpretation and helps people engage with one another in a way that is honest and respectful. It also allows people to express their own boundaries and expectations openly, ensuring that misunderstandings are minimized. Another problem with assumptions is that they create unnecessary emotional stress. When someone assumes that another person is interested in them, they may spend time analyzing every word, action, or gesture, trying to find hidden meanings. This can lead to overthinking, anxiety, and emotional frustration. Instead of enjoying the interaction for what it is, the person becomes consumed with trying to decipher unspoken messages that may not even exist. Yet, this emotional burden is completely avoidable if one chooses to take things at face value rather than assuming there is always a deeper meaning behind simple actions. Assumptions also contribute to unhealthy relationship dynamics. If one person assumes interest where there is none, they may start acting differently, behaving in a way that is inappropriate or making moves that are unwelcome. This can create discomfort for the other person, who may then feel the need to distance themselves or change their behavior to avoid misinterpretation. This distancing can sometimes be mistaken for rejection or coldness. Further complicating the situation, respecting boundaries means not only avoiding assumptions, but also ensuring that interactions remain comfortable and natural for both parties. In many situations, assumptions are based on past experiences rather than the present reality. Someone who has previously been in a situation where friendliness turned into attraction may assume that every similar situation will have the same outcome. However, every person is different, and every interaction is unique. Projecting past experiences onto new situations can lead to incorrect conclusions and unfair judgments. Instead of letting past encounters dictate present perceptions, it is important to approach every situation with an open mind and a willingness to understand without preconceptions. People also tend to make assumptions when they lack patience. Instead of allowing things to unfold naturally, they rush to conclusions based on incomplete information. Relationships, whether friendships or professional connections, take time to develop. Jumping to conclusions too soon can lead to premature decisions or actions that might not be. Allowing interactions to progress at their own pace, rather than forcing assumptions onto them, results in healthier and more genuine connections. Avoiding assumptions is also a sign of emotional maturity. It demonstrates the ability to separate personal feelings from objective reality and to respect others without imposing expectations on them. Emotionally mature individuals understand that their desires and thoughts do not dictate another person's actions or intentions. They recognize that making assumptions can lead to complications, and they choose instead to engage in interactions with clarity, understanding, and respect. Misinterpreting signals because of assumptions can also lead to regret. Acting on a false belief that someone is interested can result in actions that later feel embarrassing or inappropriate. It is always better to confirm rather than assume, ensuring that every step taken is based on mutual understanding rather than wishful thinking. A moment of patience and clarity can prevent unnecessary situations that might later cause discomfort or regret. Assumptions also impact trust. When people assume too often, they risk creating a reputation for being unreliable in their interpretations of others. If someone repeatedly misreads situations and reacts based on false assumptions, others may begin to distance themselves, feeling that their words and actions are not being understood accurately. This can create barriers in relationships, making interactions feel forced or uncomfortable. Trust is built on understanding and respect, not on making unfounded guesses about another person's intentions. Every individual has the right to control their own narrative. When others make assumptions, they take that control away, creating a version of events that may not be true. Respecting others means allowing them to define their own intentions rather than assuming those intentions based on personal interpretations. By choosing not to assume, people create space for genuine interactions that are based on truth rather than speculation. Promoting healthy relationships is essential for personal growth, emotional well-being, and societal harmony. Healthy relationships are not simply about avoiding conflict. They are about building connections based on trust, respect, communication, and mutual understanding. In an increasingly fast-paced world where technology often mediates interactions, the foundation of human relationships can sometimes become clouded. We may find ourselves prioritizing convenience over connection, efficiency over empathy, and quick responses over deep, meaningful conversations. However, promoting healthy relationships, whether romantic, platonic, familial, or professional, requires conscious effort, self-awareness, and a willingness to grow alongside others. One of the most important components of healthy relationships is the ability to respect boundaries. Boundaries define the parameters in which people feel safe, respected, and valued, and when they are respected, relationships thrive. Building healthy relationships requires individuals to understand and respect each other's emotional, mental, and physical boundaries. Boundaries allow people to retain their individuality while still fostering a sense of connection. When someone violates another's boundaries, they undermine the trust that underpins the relationship. Respecting boundaries also means being aware of personal limits, both in how much one can give and how much one expects from others. Healthy relationships are built on a balance of give and take, with both individuals feeling supported and valued. In romantic relationships, for example, this might involve a mutual understanding of the importance of space, time alone, and the need for shared activities. In professional relationships, respecting boundaries might include being clear about work hours, communication expectations, and personal space. The most important aspect is that individuals in these relationships must actively listen, communicate their own boundaries, and ensure that mutual respect is maintained. Another critical component of healthy relationships is communication. Communication is not just about talking. It is about listening, understanding, and responding in ways that promote connection. Often, people mistakenly assume that communication is solely about the words exchanged, but nonverbal cues, tone, and body language play just as important a role. Promoting healthy relationships involves fostering an environment where open and honest communication is valued. This means creating spaces where individuals feel safe to express their feelings, share their concerns, and voice their opinions without fear of judgment. It also means being willing to listen actively rather than waiting for one's turn to speak. In doing so, we create an environment of trust and understanding where both parties feel heard and validated.